The long-awaited sequel to the less than inspiring sequel to the pretty damn good sequel to the first movie that gave birth to the idea of bringing back the tough guy action movie genre that was so successful in the 80s and 90s, not to mention the tough guys themselves, is finally here, and my excitement is almost palpable. Sorry, I meant discernible. Barely. With a microscope. In fact, you would need the Hubble telescope or the James Webb Space Telescope, because nothing about this movie has seemed exciting. It has just taken too long to come out. Everything exciting about it has been watered down to the point where even the concept is akin to drinking beer mixed with urine. It seems to have ditched everything that makes the franchise fresh and exciting. Gone are the tough guy heroes of the 80s and 90s, with the exception of Stallone himself and Dolph Lundgren. They just don't seem to want to be involved. Arnie told Stallone that he was just over it.
I won't be back.
Bruce Willis finally has an excuse for looking like he doesn't give a shit about acting anymore.
Asshole.
Wesley Snipes probably felt another audit incoming and is laying low in a bunker somewhere, wondering why he still doesn't count as having been a black superhero.
What the fuck, are you out of your damn mind?
Kurt Russell never cared for the franchise and still doesn't care.
What it is, bro?
Jean-Claude Van Damme still isn't happy that his character was killed off in the second movie, and so has been ringing Stallone night and day trying to convince him to bring him back as another one of his evil twin roles.
I was waiting for that.
Which, let's face it, he could do in his sleep at this point. Mickey Rourke dropped out in favour of being a psychopath. Jet Li has just kind of disappeared. One minute he was here, the next he was gone, and everyone's just standing about whistling with their hands in their pockets looking for airplanes.
Because I'm smaller.
Antonio Banderas suddenly discovered that he just couldn't squeeze the Expendables into his busy schedule. His IMDb looks a bit like he's been trying to save up for a rainy day just in case the IRS take a day off of persecuting Snipes.
I like traveling.
Harrison Ford has clearly had enough of digging up old relics with yet another awful Indiana Jones sequel, and so is pretending he never heard of the Expendables.
Facts.
So the question is, what other action hero type actors did Stallone manage to trick? Bribe, coerce, convince to join his final Expendables movie? Well, a couple of certified badasses did take the bait, offer. Those being Iko Uwais, who decided to get involved as the not main bad guy. Tony Jaa took some time away from trying to get Ong Bak 4 off of the ground, and turns up as yet another one of Barney's old friends. That purple dinosaur really gets around. What, you mean this isn't a sequel to the internationally renowned Barney and Friends? It's even less exciting now. Among other action stars, celebrities, washed up has-been celebrities of little or no importance to the world in general, are 50 Cent, or whatever his real name is, who I'm sure was excited to get in on the action, but it turns out that the action was just standing about in various rooms while being forgotten by the cast members that actually had something to do. Next up is legendary action movie star Megan Fox. She's good at one thing. And they didn't even get her to do that in this movie. Megan took some time away from dressing little boys up as girls in order to actually do her job, which is a sad travesty for us all. Last, and sadly also least, as far as the acting and believability go, we have Andy Garcia, an actor who is either great or awful, and he clearly thinks he is in a live-action cartoon. Pig farms contain less ham than his role in this movie. So what is the story? What is this movie about, other than gathering together badasses of bygone eras? Well, this movie is about a bad guy who steals some detonators, builds a nuclear bomb and tries to use it to blow up a ship near Russia to start World War III, or war of some description. Okay, so that's a bit vague. So here's a less vague, more sarcastic explanation of this sacrilege against good movie making. Action movies aren't known for being Oscar winners. They're just an entertaining way to spend an evening. Mind you, winning an Oscar these days is more akin to being given a prize in the dumbest, ugliest, most retarded living organism competition. You have to have your head stuck a long way up your ass to hijack a whole award show, just so you can give yourself awards for how far up your own ass you've managed to fit your head. The movie starts out with the aforementioned bad guy Iko Uwais getting his hands on the nuclear detonators by being the nastiest piece of work outside of political office. He clearly enjoys torturing people and even murders a child, which leads me to think that the only reason he did this movie is so that he could have some fun being the bad guy for once, as he really appears to be enjoying this break from the norm. Cut to the only scene in this movie that I will give a pass to, and not because it's a good scene, because it really isn't, but because I always kind of like Jason Statham's and Sylvester Stallone's interactions. You actually do kind of feel like they are old friends, but with Jason seeing Sylvester as a quasi-father figure, they have a kind of matey feel that is the only thing in his movies that is even vaguely authentic. The scene in question sees Barney trying to get his special ring back at a biker bar. To do this, he interrupts an argument between Jason Statham and his new girlfriend. I can only surmise that Jason Statham received too many knocks on the head since the second movie to swap Charisma Carpenter for Megan Fox. It must be a bit like when Richard Hammond had his big crash and woke up liking celery when before he hated it. But in Statham's case, he woke up liking women that look as though they've performed in 1 or 200 too many adult movies. So Barney and Christmas get the ring back by beating up former world's strongest man Eddie Hall, who took some time away from his booming Uber tank service to help out our lovable hardnuts. Then Barney and his team are told by not Church, because Bruce Willis can no longer act, even by choice anymore, and not Drummer, because Harrison Ford forgot that this franchise existed, but Andy Garcia, in the character of CIA operative Marsh. And they're told to go and stop a bad guy from getting the nuclear detonators. But unluckily for them, all of the competence they have shown in previous movies is completely missing, and so they're left having to bumble around doing unnecessary tough guy routines, like body slamming a man multiple times on a moving car, instead of simply pushing him off. And then just as the set-piece action scene is almost over, Christmas, who for unknown reasons has been singled out as the man responsible for catching bad guy Iko Uwais, while everyone else pretends that they're tied down fighting low-level goons, finds himself in the dilemma of either saving Barney, who is still flying the aeroplane they arrived on, or catching Iko Uwais, who he has been chasing in a dune buggy. He chooses to save Barney, but Iko Uwais still shoots Barney out of the air, and he crash lands on a building, and we see his bloodied and burned corpse still in the pilot seat. And I am sure you are now all asking yourselves, did they really kill off Sylvester Stallone? Is Barney dead? Well, we'll find out a bit later on. So Christmas gets the blame for Iko Uwais getting away with the detonators, even though literally nobody else even attempted to catch him, and the other person that was with Christmas's team at the start of the operation also just buggered off and left him. So Christmas gets kicked out of the Expendables, and his girlfriend Megan Fox is given command instead, because of course she is a badass that can do what Christmas and Barney do, only better. That is actually a line in the movie, so yeah. Okay, I guess we know where this franchise is going. Next, Christmas takes on some odd jobs to distract himself, but then he decides that he has to do something, and so breaks into his girlfriend's house so he can go through her files and try to find Iko Uwais. Megan catches him in the act, and they end up bumping uglies. Christmas gives Megan a knife, which is the most obvious tracking device in the world, and then waits for her to leave on the mission to recover the detonators. He then follows her route and realizes that she must be on a boat, so flies to some tropical looking place where he intends to meet an old friend of Barney's who is a retired expendable and now owns a boat. This is where Tony Jaa comes in, and honestly, he has nothing to do in this movie. His inclusion is simply to attract an audience using another big action name. Meanwhile, Megan Fox and her team are immediately captured by the bad guys. They were so utterly useless that they just wandered onto the oil tanker disguised as an American aircraft carrier, as though they were getting home after going on a drunken bender. They might as well have been slurring singing in the rain while trying to stop their heads from falling off. Christmas then arrives with Tony Jaa, kicks everyone's ass, then finds the prisoners and helps them escape, because they seem to have become a bunch of Nancy Boy soy drinking weaklings since the previous movies. If they got any more impotent, we would need to dig up Pele, Frankenstein him back to life, and ask him to recommend something for their erectile dysfunction. As a small plus, Tony Jaa really is pretty impressive, and I might have to check out one of his new movies at some point. So now that Christmas has saved the Undependables, he goes about killing Iko Uwais, who deserved so much better than a 2-minute fight scene that ends all of a sudden and then is immediately forgotten. Oh, and we nearly forgot the plot there, which is understandable as it completely sucks. So, the bad guy has a nuclear bomb on the ship that looks like an American aircraft carrier, and he is going to blow it up somewhere around the coast of Russia, which is somehow going to spark a war, which the bad guy thinks will make him lots of money. Christmas then discovers that Andy Garcia's Marsh is the real main bad guy, codenamed Ocelot. There is a dull, pointlessly shoehorned in backstory between him and Barney that doesn't matter enough to explain, so I won't. The rest of the Irredeemables are then offloaded from the ship, while Christmas stays behind to deal with the nuclear bomb, Marsh and his remaining men. Now, if you were thinking that Christmas was going to have to struggle to fight to stop the nuclear bomb, you would be wrong, because he just took Bonnie Tyler's advice and turned the ship around. That is it. There were no destroyed controls, no satellite-guided computer that he needed a special password for. He just turned the wheel and Andy Garcia's plans were ruined. Now, Andy wasn't happy with that, but we didn't get to find out much about what he thought because Barney suddenly turns up in a gunship and kills Andy and the rest of the bad guys. Job done. Movie over. Whoopee. That isn't a sarcastic whoopee. I was glad it finally finished. But how did he fake his death, I hear you ask? And why did he not tell Christmas or the others that trusted him? Well, who the f*** knows? I guess he's just a selfish prick. And he faked his own death by drugging and murdering the biker that won his favourite ring off of him earlier in the movie. Yep, he just dragged an innocent civilian into a CIA-backed mission in which he clearly intended to fake his own death and murder someone who had annoyed him a bit. What a hero. What a great guy. So, can I recommend this movie? No, I can't, because it is utter, unrelenting shit. It is easily the worst movie I have seen this year. I would rather watch Ant-Man 3, The Flash, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, something or other title, Seth Rogen, back crap, soy latte drinking wokeness on steroids, back to back, than sit through this stain on the memory of action blockbusters again. It has nothing going for it. The CGI was uncomfortably bad and dragged you out of the action scenes. The acting, with the exception of Statham and Iko Uwais, who seem to have actually been trying, was painfully bad. And the worst thing was the director, who had $100 million to work with and managed to produce a movie that makes old 50s B-movies look like works of art. I quite literally found the effects of Tarantula 1955 to be vastly superior and more believable. The only thing I am taking away from this movie is my disgust at watching Megan Fox drinking shots in this weird slack-jawed way to keep from smearing her lipstick. It feels like a small explanation of the many things wrong with the West right now. This has been Movies Suck, consoling myself with the knowledge that movies better than this are 10 a penny from the 80s, and I can at any time watch Arnie fight a guy named Bennett who is dressed for bondage night at the local gay bar, or watch Alan Rickman grimace with pure acting skill as he tries to get the drop on Bruce Willis's understated New York cop. Signing out, leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.